Have you ever dreamed of exploring Brazil, where a single national park is bigger than some countries? Many travelers know Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, but few realize this vast land also hides dunes covering 1,500 square kilometers that turn into turquoise lagoons after the rain, and waterfalls thundering for nearly 3 kilometers through the jungle. The good news is you don't have to piece it all together alone. Today, we'll take you through Brazil's most unreal wonders, from iconic cities to landscapes that feel otherworldly. On the northern coast of Maranhão lies Lençóis Maranhenses, a desert that is not truly a desert. For more than 1,500 square kilometers, white sand dunes stretch like waves frozen in place, their ridges rising and falling across the horizon. From above, the landscape resembles an endless sheet, folded and rippled by the wind. During the rainy season, water gathers between the dunes. Clear lagoons appear in shades of blue and green, each framed by walls of sand. Some stretch for hundreds of meters, deep enough for fish carried in by seasonal floods. Others are small pools that vanish as quickly as they form. By the dry season, the lagoons shrink and disappear, leaving only the shifting dunes behind. The silence is striking. Winds sweep across the ridges, carrying fine grains of sand that reshape the landscape day by day. At sunrise and sunset, the dunes glow in shifting colors, their shadows moving like tides over the white expanse. Covering the north of Brazil lies the Amazon, the largest rainforest on Earth. The canopy stretches unbroken for thousands of kilometers, an ocean of green that hides rivers, lakes, and countless forms of life. From above, the forest appears endless, but within it lies a world of shadows, humidity, and constant motion. The Amazon River cuts through the heart of the forest, carrying more water than any other river on the planet. Tributaries join it from every direction, turning the basin into a labyrinth of channels, islands, and floodplains. In the wet season, the waters rise and swallow the land, forests becoming submerged as fish swim between tree trunks. In the dry season, sandbars and exposed roots reshape the landscape once again. The rainforest holds an immense variety of life. Jaguars move through the undergrowth, sloths cling to branches, and macaws flash across the canopy in bright colors. In the hills of Minas Gerais lies Ouro Preto, a city born from the gold rush of the 18th century. Its streets climb steep slopes, paved in uneven stone, and lined with houses painted white, their windows and doors framed in bright colors. From every angle, towers of Baroque churches rise above the rooftops, their facades carved in stone and decorated with gold. The terrain is dramatic. Hills fold one after another, and the town clings to their slopes, stairways and bridges linking neighborhoods across ravines. From the higher streets, the view opens across tiled roofs and steeples, with green ridges closing the horizon. The air carries echoes of history, bells ringing from churches, markets filling plazas, and the memory of mines that once cut into the earth below. Deep within the Amazon stands Manaus, a city that grew at the meeting point of rivers and forest. It lies where the dark waters of the Rio Negro meet the pale currents of the Solimões, a confluence that flows side by side for kilometers without mixing. Around the city spreads the rainforest, stretching in every direction beyond the horizon. Manaus rose during the rubber boom of the 19th century, when wealth poured into the region and left behind ornate theaters and buildings in the middle of the jungle. Today, modern districts spread outward, but the city remains surrounded by rivers that connect it more than roads. Boats leave the harbor constantly, carrying goods and people across the waterways into remote communities. On the island coast of Maranhão stands São Luís, a city shaped by the tides of the Atlantic and centuries of colonial rule. Narrow streets run between rows of tiled facades, their colors fading under the tropical sun. The historic center is a maze of stairways, plazas, and houses built from stone and wood, many dating back to the 17th century. The city lies where rivers meet the sea, surrounded by mangroves and shifting sandbars. The tides here are among the strongest in Brazil, rising and falling dramatically each day, shaping the harbors and exposing wide stretches of mudflat. West of Manaus lies Anavilhanas, a labyrinth of more than 400 islands scattered across the Rio Negro. From above, the archipelago looks like a shattered mirror, long channels of dark water cutting between strips of forest. During the dry season, the islands stand as dense patches of green. In the flood season, rising waters merge land and river until the boundaries disappear. The islands are covered in rainforest, with canopies that spill directly into the black water. Monkeys move between branches, pink river dolphins surface along the channels, and flocks of birds sweep across the horizon. Each island holds a different pattern of trees and lagoons, shaped by the currents that twist through the maze. Navigation is a challenge. The channels split and rejoin endlessly, creating routes that change with the river's flow. Boats weave through narrow passages where the forest hangs low, then emerge into wide stretches of open water. North of Natal stretch the Genipabu Dunes, a shifting landscape where sand hills rise above lagoons and palm groves. The dunes change shape constantly, sculpted by Atlantic winds that drive the sand inland and reshape the ridges from season to season. Some stand more than 30 meters high, their slopes steep and smooth against the sky. At the base of the dunes, freshwater lagoons form after the rains, their clear water contrasting with the pale sand. Camels and dune buggies move across the ridges, following routes that shift as the terrain changes. From the crest, the view extends over the green of palm trees, the blue of the sea, and the white of endless sand. On the coast of Pernambuco lies Recife, a city built on rivers, canals, and islands. The Capibaribe and Beberibe rivers weave through its center, splitting the land into fragments joined by bridges. From above, the city spreads across waterways, earning its name the Venice of Brazil. The shoreline is long and open, lined with reefs that break the Atlantic surf before it reaches the beaches. Beyond the reefs, the sea shifts between turquoise and deep blue, while inland, the city rises in glass towers and dense neighborhoods. Boa Viagem Beach stretches for kilometers, its sands bordered by palms and apartment blocks. In the historic quarter, narrow streets and old churches recall centuries of colonial rule. Markets and squares fill with music, while dancers move to the rhythms of frevo and maracatu. At night, lights reflect across the rivers, turning the canals into ribbons of color. In the heart of Bahia lies Chapada Diamantina, a highland plateau cut by valleys, rivers, and sheer cliffs. The land rises suddenly from the surrounding plains, its mesas and ridges forming a skyline of flat-topped mountains. From above, the Chapada looks like a fractured tableland, broken by gorges that run deep into the rock. Water is everywhere. Rivers carve canyons and plunge from the cliffs in long waterfalls that vanish into pools far below. Cachoeira da Fumaça drops nearly 340 meters, its stream turning to mist before reaching the ground. Underground, caves stretch for kilometers, their chambers filled with blue lakes lit by shafts of sunlight filtering through the stone. The landscape shifts with each turn of the trail. Red sandstone cliffs glow at sunset. Valleys spread in endless green, and high ridges open wide views across the plateau. In the rainy season, streams swell and waterfalls multiply, covering the cliffs in white threads of water. South of Fortaleza lies Canoa Quebrada, a beach defined by its red cliffs and wide expanse of sand. The cliffs rise sharply from the shoreline, their faces carved into towers and ledges by wind and rain. At their base, the Atlantic crashes in steady waves, leaving a strip of pale sand between water and stone. Fishing boats rest on the shore, their sails painted in bright colors that stand out against the cliffs. Beyond them, the horizon is open sea, restless and blue under the sun. At sunset, the cliffs glow deep orange, their shadows stretching across the sand as the tide moves in. The village stands just above the cliffs, its streets narrow and filled with music at night. In the center of South America lies the Pantanal, the largest tropical wetland on Earth. Stretching across Mato Grosso and Mato Grosso do Sul, it is a plain that floods with the seasons, turning into a vast mosaic of rivers, lakes, and marshes. In the wet months, the land disappears underwater, and forests stand half-submerged as fish swim among the trunks. In the dry season, the waters recede, exposing savannas and mudflats where animals gather in great numbers. The Pantanal is alive with wildlife. Herds of capybaras graze by the riversides, caimans bask on sandbanks, and flocks of storks and herons darken the sky as they rise from the marsh. Jaguars hunt along the river channels, moving silently between islands of forest, while giant otters play and fish in the waters. The flat horizon seems endless, broken only by palm groves and patches of woodland. Each sunrise lights the wetlands in gold, and each sunset sets the rivers burning red. South of Recife lies Porto de Galinhas, a stretch of coast where reefs form natural pools just offshore. At low tide, the water recedes and reveals shallow basins filled with clear blue water. Small boats carry visitors across the short distance, gliding over calm seas to reach the pools. Inside, schools of tropical fish move between corals, their colors bright against the pale sand below. The beaches themselves run for kilometers, framed by palms and lined with soft white sand. Waves break gently over the reef, leaving the shoreline calm and shallow. Beyond the pools, the open ocean stretches in deeper shades of blue. The village behind the beach is lively with markets, cafes, and narrow streets, but the heart of Porto de Galinhas is the reef itself, a seascape shaped by tide, coral, and sun. On the northern coast between Maranhão and Piauí, the Parnaíba River meets the Atlantic in a vast delta. Unlike most rivers, which split into 2 or 3 branches, the Parnaíba divides into dozens, creating more than 70 islands spread across a labyrinth of water and sand. From above, the channels twist like veins through mangroves, dunes, and lagoons, before finally spilling into the sea. The landscape is in constant flux. Tides surge inland, flooding the mangroves and reshaping the sandbanks. At low tide, wide beaches and mudflats appear, covered with the tracks of crabs and seabirds. Inland channels remain calm and shaded, lined with palms and tangled roots, where herons and kingfishers gather. The islands vary from dense forest to open sand. Some hold freshwater lagoons formed by seasonal rains, while others are little more than shifting dunes carried by the wind. Boats weave through the delta, navigating narrow passages that change with the currents. On the border of Brazil and Argentina, the Iguaçu River plunges over a basalt edge in one of the greatest waterfalls in the world. For nearly 3 kilometers, the river breaks into hundreds of cascades that crash into a gorge below. From the cliffs, white curtains of water drop in countless streams, their spray rising in clouds that drift above the forest. The roar is constant. Even before the falls are in sight, the sound of water carries through the jungle. Trails wind through the forest to viewpoints where the scale comes into focus. Narrow chutes, broad curtains, and at the center, the Garganta do Diabo, or Devil's Throat, a horseshoe of water that crashes with overwhelming force. Rainbows appear in the mist, arching across the gorge as swifts dive into the spray to nest on hidden ledges. Around the falls, the forest is alive with coatis, toucans, and butterflies that move in the humid air. Between mountains and ocean lies Rio de Janeiro, a city set in one of the most dramatic landscapes in the world. Granite peaks rise straight from the coast, their cliffs plunging into bays and beaches that curve along the Atlantic. The city spreads across narrow plains and lagoons between these mountains, giving each district its own horizon of stone and sea. At the entrance of Guanabara Bay stands Sugarloaf, a dome of granite that towers above the harbor. From its summit, the city unfolds in all directions, beaches stretching south, mountains inland, and islands scattered across the water. Above it all rises Corvocado, crowned by the statue of Christ, the Redeemer, arms spread wide against the sky. The shoreline defines the city's rhythm. Copacabana and Ipanema curve in long crescents of sand, their waves rolling day and night. Inland, Tijuca Forest climbs the slopes, one of the largest urban forests in the world, where waterfalls and trails lie hidden in dense vegetation. Far off Brazil's northeastern coast lies Fernando de Noronha, an archipelago of volcanic peaks rising from the Atlantic. The main island is rugged, with cliffs that fall directly into turquoise seas and bays carved deep into the stone. Beaches curve between headlands, their sands bordered by forest and rock, each stretch of coast shaped by wind and tide. The waters around the island are among the clearest in the tropics. Sea turtles swim in the shallows, dolphins gather in large groups near the bays, and reef fish move in bright patterns through the coral. From the cliffs above, the water glows in shades of blue and green, shifting with the light of the day. At Bahia do Sancho, reached only by a steep staircase cut into the cliff, waves wash against golden sand enclosed by walls of stone. Other coves remain hidden, revealed only at low tide or by boat. On the plains of Goiás lies Goiânia, a city planned in the 1930s as a modern capital for the state. Built in the middle of the Cerrado, it spreads across wide avenues and tree-lined streets, its layout designed around circular plazas and radiating boulevards. From the air, the plan reveals geometric order, with neighborhoods expanding outward in rings. The Cerrado still frames the city. Beyond the urban core, stretches of savanna spread in every direction, with twisted trees and tall grasses shaped by sun and seasonal rains. Within the city, parks and green spaces preserve fragments of this landscape, where capybaras graze near lakes and birds call from the branches. On the high plateau of Goiás rises Chapada dos Veadeiros, a landscape of stone cliffs, canyons, and waterfalls cut deep into the Cerrado. The land sits more than 1,000 meters above sea level, its ridges glowing red and gold in the sun. From the trails, the horizon spreads in every direction, an expanse of valleys and mesas broken by sheer walls of rock. Water runs across the plateau in countless streams. Some plunge suddenly into narrow gorges, forming cascades that drop into pools hidden among the cliffs. Others widen into broad rivers lined with quartz and white sand. Catarata dos Coros and Salto do Rio Preto fall from great heights, their spray rising into the air before joining the currents below. The vegetation is distinct. Gnarled trees, orchids, and tall grasses thrive in the dry climate, blooming after seasonal rains. Wildlife moves through the plateau, toucans, maned wolves, and giant armadillos among them. On the northeastern coast of Ceará lies Jericoacoara, a village surrounded by dunes, lagoons, and ocean. The settlement sits at the edge of a national park, where winds from the Atlantic sculpt tall dunes that shift from year to year. Streets are sandy and unpaved, blending directly into the desert landscape beyond. The shoreline here is dramatic. Long beaches stretch beneath cliffs and dunes, with tidal pools forming at low tide. Offshore, the sea is restless, its waves constant under the strong trade winds. These same winds fill the horizon with kites and sails, turning the beach into a gathering place for surfers and sailors. At dusk, people climb the tallest dune by the village to watch the sun sink into the Atlantic. The light fades across sand and water, casting the landscape in gold before night takes over. On Brazil's northeastern shore lies João Pessoa, a city where rivers meet the Atlantic and forests press close to the coast. The shoreline curves into long beaches, their sands lined with palms and reefs that break the waves before they reach the shore. At low tide, pools form among the rocks, stretching far into the sea like temporary lagoons. The city itself spreads between rivers and hills, with broad avenues and shaded plazas. In the historic center, churches and colonial houses stand among narrow streets paved with stone. Beyond them, modern districts rise, but the rhythm of life remains slower than in other northeastern capitals. At Cabo Branco, the easternmost tip of the continent, the land meets the ocean in cliffs of white stone. From here, the sun rises first on the Americas, casting light across the Atlantic horizon. Between Recife and Maceió lies Maragogi, a stretch of coastline where reefs create calm waters and shallow lagoons. Just offshore, long coral barriers form natural pools known as galés. At low tide, boats carry visitors across the turquoise water to reach them, where fish swim in bright flashes between rocks and coral. The beaches of Maragogi run in wide arcs, their white sand lined with coconut palms that lean toward the sea. The water remains shallow and clear for hundreds of meters, shifting in shades of blue and green under the sun. Tides define the rhythm of life here. At high tide, the pools disappear beneath the waves, and the ocean covers the reefs in restless surf. At low tide, the sea reveals its hidden world, turning the shoreline into a landscape of lagoons, sandbanks, and coral gardens. In the Mantiqueira Mountains of São Paulo rises Pedra do Baú, a massive block of granite that towers above the surrounding valleys. The rock stands at more than 1,900 meters, its sheer walls dropping steeply on every side. From a distance, it looks like a fortress of stone, isolated against the ridges that stretch across the horizon. Trails climb through forested slopes to the base, where ladders and metal steps are fixed into the rock. The ascent is steep, and from the summit, the view spreads in all directions. Rolling mountains, deep valleys, and distant towns scattered across the highlands. At dawn, clouds often drift below the peak, leaving Pedra do Baú rising above a sea of mist. In clear light, the granite glows gold against the green of the mountains, a landmark carved by time and weather into the heart of the range. On a hillside above the Atlantic stands Olinda, a city of steep cobbled streets and bright facades. Churches crown the ridges, their towers rising above rows of painted houses in blue, yellow, and green. From the upper slopes, the view reaches across the coastline to Recife, its skyline contrasting with the colonial roofs below. Olinda's streets twist through plazas shaded by old trees, opening into courtyards filled with markets and music. At night, lanterns and colored lights spill across the uneven walls, echoing the rhythm of drums that carries through the hills. The city is alive with movement during Carnival, when parades climb the narrow streets and giant puppets sway above the crowds. In the mountains of Minas Gerais lies Belo Horizonte, a city designed in the late 19th century as a modern capital. It spreads across a basin surrounded by ridges, its streets laid out in a geometric grid that cuts through valleys and climbs over slopes. From above, the city appears as a sea of rooftops and towers, pressed between the Serra do Curral and distant hills. The landscape gives Belo Horizonte its rhythm. The mountains rise close to the edge of the city, their stone faces visible from plazas and avenues. At sunset, the ridges glow red, casting long shadows across the basin. Within the city, broad avenues intersect with smaller diagonal streets, opening into squares filled with markets and fountains. Green spaces remain among the concrete. Parks, lakes, and tree-lined boulevards preserve fragments of the surrounding environment. Beyond them, neighborhoods climb steep hillsides, their streets winding between houses that overlook the center below. On the southern coast of Bahia lies Trancoso, a village where cliffs, forest, and ocean meet. At its heart is the Cuadrado, a grassy square framed by rows of brightly painted houses. From its edge, the land drops suddenly to the Atlantic, with views that stretch across beaches and headlands. The coastline here is striking. Cliffs of red and white earth rise above long beaches of pale sand, lined with coconut palms that lean toward the sea. Paths wind down from the village to the shore, where the waves break gently in shallow surf. At low tide, reefs appear offshore, turning parts of the sea into calm natural pools. On the coast of Bahia stands Salvador, a city built on cliffs above the Atlantic. The land rises sharply from the bay, dividing the city into an upper and lower level. Elevators and steep streets connect them, linking harbors and markets at the waterfront to churches and plazas on the ridges above. The shoreline curves around the Bahia de Todos os Santos, one of the largest natural bays in Brazil. Here, ships once carried sugar and gold to the Atlantic world, leaving behind fortresses, lighthouses, and colonial stone. Inland, streets climb in a maze of colorful houses, their facades painted in bright pastels that glow in the tropical sun. The air is filled with sound. Drums and chants echo through the neighborhoods, mixing Catholic processions with Afro-Brazilian rhythms. In the historic Pelourinho district, plazas open among Baroque churches and tiled courtyards, alive with music and dance. Across Guanabara Bay from Rio de Janeiro lies Niterói, a city framed by ocean, mountains, and long beaches. From its shoreline, the view of Rio's skyline is dramatic. Sugarloaf and Corvocado rising above the water, their granite faces catching the light at sunset. The coastline of Niterói is rugged and varied. Cliffs fall directly into the sea, broken by coves of white sand and waves that crash against the rocks. At Itacoatiara, surfers ride heavy swells, while calmer bays offer quiet stretches of sand beneath forested hills. Above the harbor stands the Museum of Contemporary Art, a white structure shaped like a flying saucer, perched on a cliff with wide views over the bay. In the Serra Gaúcha Mountains lies Gramado, a town where pine forests, rolling hills, and lakes frame streets lined with wooden chalets. The altitude brings cooler air, and in winter, mist drifts through the valleys, giving the landscape a sharp contrast to Brazil's tropical coastlines. The town is known for its alpine character. Roofs slope steeply against the rain. Flower beds fill plazas, and cobbled streets wind between cafes and chocolate shops. Around Gramado, the land spreads into vineyards, forests, and canyons, with trails leading to waterfalls hidden in the hills. At Lago Negro, dark waters reflect the trees that surround it, while pedal boats move slowly across the surface. Each season brings a new atmosphere. Hydrangeas blooming in summer, autumn leaves covering the ground, winter frost on rooftops. On the northern coast of São Paulo state lies Ubatuba, a stretch of shoreline where the Serra do Mar mountains descend sharply into the Atlantic. The forested slopes are dense and humid, covered in the green of the Mata Atlântica, one of the most diverse ecosystems in the world. The coastline is broken into bays and coves, more than 100 beaches hidden among the cliffs and headlands. Some are wide crescents of sand with calm water. Others are narrow strips reached only by trail or boat, where waves crash against the rocks. Offshore, islands rise from the sea, their slopes thick with vegetation. Rain is frequent, feeding rivers and waterfalls that cut through the forest before reaching the ocean. In the southeast of Brazil sprawls São Paulo, the largest city in South America. It rises from a plateau more than 700 meters above sea level, spreading across valleys and ridges until the horizon is filled with towers. From the air, the city appears endless, a grid of avenues, high-rises, and neighborhoods, stretching far in every direction. The scale is overwhelming. Concrete and glass climb into the sky, while highways loop around the city like rivers of traffic. Districts form their own worlds, markets, financial centers, and residential zones, pressed tightly together. At ground level, the streets are crowded with people, shops, and constant movement. Yet fragments of green remain. Parks and botanical gardens hold patches of forest, and the Chiaté and Pinheiros rivers wind through the basin, reminders of the land beneath the city. On clear days, the Serra de Cantareira rises to the north, a wall of forested mountains that still borders the metropolis. On Brazil's northeastern coast, between rivers and mangroves, lies Aracaju, the capital of Sergipe. Built where the Sergipe River meets the Atlantic, the city is framed by wide estuaries, sandbanks, and tidal flats that shift with the daily rhythm of the sea. Along the shore stretch long urban beaches, their sands bordered by palm trees and low dunes. The waters are shallow and warm, with waves that break gently over the sand. Beyond the beaches, mangrove forests spread through the river delta, their roots tangled in the tides and alive with crabs and birds. Aracaju remains slower paced than its larger neighbors. Markets line the streets near the riverfront, filled with the scent of fruit and seafood. North of Cuiabá lies Nobres, a region where limestone caves and springs create rivers of extraordinary clarity. Underground waters flow through the stone and emerge in pools so transparent that fish and plants appear suspended in the air. Snorkeling through these rivers feels like drifting across an aquarium without walls, where schools of bright fish move calmly among rocks and submerged branches. The landscape around Nobres is shaped by forested hills and hidden lagoons. At Lagoa Azul, cliffs rise above a pool of vivid blue, its color shifting with the light of the sun. Nearby caves hold bats and stone formations that drip slowly from the ceilings. Unlike more visited regions, Nobres remains quiet, its rivers and springs surrounded by rural villages and cerrado forest, where life moves at a slower rhythm in the shade of limestone hills. On the plateau of Paraná lies Curitiba, a city built on high ground where winters are cold and the air is sharp. From above, the city spreads in a web of avenues and neighborhoods, its growth shaped by planned axes and wide streets. Despite its size, Curitiba is known for weaving green into the urban fabric. Parks stretch across the city, many built on former quarries or floodplains. At the Botanical Garden, glass domes rise above gardens laid out in geometric patterns, while trails wind through lakes and groves in the larger parks. Native forest remains in patches, where Araucaria pines stand tall, their flat crowns marking the horizon. The city's design emphasizes movement and space. Broad avenues carry buses along exclusive lanes, while pedestrian streets cut into the center, lined with shops and shaded by trees. In winter, frost whitens the parks, and in summer, the air grows heavy with rain carried in from the Atlantic. Off the coast of Paraná lies Ilha do Mel, a low island of dunes, mangroves, and forest surrounded by the Atlantic. There are no cars or paved roads here, only sandy trails that wind between beaches and small fishing villages. The pace is slow, defined by tides and daylight. The coastline is varied. Long open beaches stretch for kilometers, while rocky headlands rise suddenly from the sand. At one end of the island, the old Portuguese fortress still guards the entrance to the bay, its stone walls overlooking the water. At another, the lighthouse of Farol das Conchas stands above the dunes, its beam cutting across the ocean at night. Ilha do Mel feels enclosed by nature. Waves break constantly on the shore, winds sweep across the sand, and forest presses close to the paths, leaving the island in a state of quiet isolation. On the southeastern coast of Brazil lies Vitória, a city built on islands at the mouth of a wide bay. Bridges link the islands together, arching over the water to connect neighborhoods spread between hills and harbors. From the shoreline, granite peaks rise abruptly, their slopes covered in green, forming a backdrop that surrounds the city on every side. The coastline is jagged, with inlets, beaches, and coves sheltered by rocky headlands. Fishing boats move through the bay, while ships wait offshore, bound for the port that has long tied Vitoria to trade. Along the waterfront, promenades and plazas open views across the water to the islands beyond. On the southern coast of Brazil lies Florianópolis, a city spread across an island joined to the mainland by bridges. Hills rise from the center of the island, covered in green forest, while the shoreline stretches into bays, lagoons, and more than 40 beaches. From above, the city seems divided between ocean and land, its neighborhoods pressed between ridges and water. The beaches vary with each coast. On the east, waves roll in strong and constant, attracting surfers from across the country. On the west, the bay is calm, with fishing boats anchored offshore and villages clustered along the sand. To the south, long deserted beaches run for kilometers, bordered by dunes, wetlands, and headlands. Lagoa da Conceição lies at the island's center, a vast lagoon surrounded by hills, dunes, and forest. Trails lead from the water to viewpoints above the city, while boats cross to villages hidden on its shores. On the coast of Santa Catarina lies Balneário Camboriú, a city where skyscrapers stand almost at the water's edge. The shoreline curves in a wide arc, its sand backed by one of the tallest skylines in Brazil. Towers rise in dense rows, their glass and steel reflecting the light of the Atlantic, giving the beach the feel of a metropolis by the sea. The bay is sheltered, with calm waves that roll gently onto the sand. Along the shore, a promenade stretches beneath the towers, crowded with cafes, shops, and people day and night. From the hills at either end of the beach, the contrast is striking. Ocean on one side, vertical glass on the other. At the southern edge of Brazil lies Porto Alegre, a city built on the banks of the Guaíba, a wide river lake where 5 rivers converge before flowing into the Lagoa dos Patos. From the shoreline, the horizon stretches into open water, its surface glowing gold at sunset as the city reflects across the bay. The terrain rises quickly from the waterfront into low hills covered with houses, towers, and winding streets. Neighborhoods spread between ridges and valleys, giving the city a layered skyline that changes with each view. Markets and plazas cluster near the port, while tree-lined avenues extend outward toward modern districts and universities. The river defines the city's rhythm, Boats cross to islands scattered offshore, while long piers reach into the water, crowded each evening with people watching the sun sink below the horizon. Behind the city, the plateau spreads south into rolling countryside and north into the Serra Gaúcha Mountains. In the center of Brazil stands Brasilia, a city built in the shape of an idea. Conceived in the 1950s and completed in just a few years, it rose from the Cerrado Plains as the new capital of the nation. From above, the city spreads like the outline of an airplane or bird, its wings formed by sweeping avenues that stretch across the plateau. The design is deliberate. Government buildings align along the central axis, their shapes bold and geometric against the open sky. The National Congress Towers stand beside a low dome and inverted bowl, symbols of power set apart by vast lawns. Cathedrals curve upward in white concrete, their spires fanning like hands reaching for light. Wide spaces dominate the city. Streets are broad, plazas immense, neighborhoods arranged in strict sectors. At ground level, the scale feels both monumental and strange, as if built for something larger than daily life. In the highlands of Rio Grande do Sul lies Canela, a mountain town surrounded by pine forests and valleys. Its streets are lined with chalets, plazas, and shops, echoing the alpine style of the region. The air is cool, the rhythm slower, and the hills around the town lead quickly into landscapes of forest and stone. The most striking sight is Jericoacoara Falls, where a river plunges more than 130 meters into a deep gorge. Trails and viewpoints wind through the surrounding forest, offering glimpses of the cascade from above and below. Beyond it, smaller streams and trails cut through the valleys, leading to hidden groves and rocky outcrops. Brazil is vibrant, diverse, and full of rhythm. A land where lush rainforests meet bustling cities, where samba and football pulse through everyday life, and where centuries of tradition blend seamlessly with modern energy. If this glimpse sparked your curiosity, hit subscribe. There are many more countries to explore right here on the channel.